Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I am excited to do, even though it's going to be all about what I feel are my top 5 financial mistakes that I have made throughout my life. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome. So if you're new here, I am a primarily beauty focused channel, but especially recently, I've been adding in other topics, topics that have been a part of my social media career since I started in 2009, such as book reviews. I enjoy doing vlogs around the home, fashion. But really, I've been wanting to put an emphasis on creating videos that I feel are going to be hopefully helpful to people in some sort of way. My hope with this video and sharing some of what I think are my, top financial mistakes that I've made in my life is maybe you are listening and you're like, oh wait, I didn't know that, and you can make a change. Maybe you are listening and you think this is something that I learned in my own financial journey, and you can comment that and I can learn something from it, or maybe someone reading the comments can. I'm definitely someone who feels like my education and the financial landscape was severely lacking in school, in high school, in college. I feel like some of these mistakes are because I did not learn these in school, and I also was not passed down, by a family member or anything like that. And I think I spent quite a few years feeling bad for myself and blaming that, right? I didn't learn it in school. I didn't have a parent who could also be a financial advisor to me. So like, woe is me. And then I was like, well, that's not really a way to think. You need to then turn that around. So I started doing things like seeking out YouTube videos on this topic, listening to podcasts on this topic, reading to books on this topic, asking questions, doing my own research. And that way I was able to turn what was a very bleak financial situation, was really able to turn it around. An extremely community-driven person and a community-driven channel. I think the comment section can be such a beautiful thing, because I think too, a lot of people, and especially a lot of women I notice, we really have a desire to help one another. And I won't get too deep into that topic, but I still feel like women are at a disadvantage. We can help one another and help, spread more knowledge. I think it could be a really beneficial thing. So with that being said, I hope that you will subscribe and stick around, because I like to post a lot of different content, and I do post daily on my YouTube channel. But jumping into my 5 financial mistakes, this was one that came from just not knowing what I was doing. This was not contributing to my 401k when I did work in a traditional job space, and not taking advantage of my employer matching my 401k contribution. A little bit of backstory on this one. I started my first really full-time job when I was in college. I started working at a hospital, and I ended up staying there for about 8 years, and actually remember being taken into the room from HR with a handful of other new employees and being given this stack of papers to fill out, and one of them saying like, I don't remember what it is now because I've been removed from the traditional space for such a long time, but it was like, enter 1 for this tax reason and enter 0 for this tax reason. And I remember raising my hand and saying, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to put 1 or 0, and being told if you put this one, you will have less taxes taken out, which means your paycheck will be bigger. But if you do this one, your paycheck will be smaller and more taxes will be taken out. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm a broke college student. I'm like, what? I want my paycheck. What are taxes? And added on to that, we had a 401k or a retirement account that was offered through the employer. And I, again, chose to put the smallest amount in there because it was like, why is everyone trying to take stuff from my paycheck? This is just rude. I elected to put the smallest amount into my retirement, not understanding at all what that even meant. Just down the road, when I was in a serious relationship, I ended up going on to marry this man. I'm subsequently now divorced, but we would have, a conversation about finances. And he also worked a traditional job at the time, and we were talking about our retirements and 401k, and he was like, yeah, one thing I really love about my job is that they match my 401k, so I put as much money in there as I can. And I was like, what do you mean? What does that mean? That was when I first learned about really even what a 401k is, what it means when an employer matches it, why you should not be putting the minimum amount in there. And I will say that me and my ex-husband worked at our jobs for the same amount of time. We didn't work them like at the same timeline, but we worked 8 years at these respective jobs. And when we each left our job, his 401k was 5 or 6 times the amount of money that I had in mine. And I was like, oh. I instantly felt very silly. And after I found this out, and I talked to my ex-husband a little bit more and did my own kind of research, I went into my job and I changed the way everything was set up, and I added more into my 401k, but really it was too late because at that time, within 2 years, I had left that position and I have now gone on to work full-time in social media, which means I have no 401k. I have no retirement. I have no employer matching the money that I was saving aside for my future. So I won't go too into depth in the whole like 401k. You know, I now have a Roth IRA. One thing I will say is that if you are working a traditional job right now, do pay attention just initially to that, how much taxes are being taken out, because that affects you at the end of the year. If you don't pay in enough taxes, then you are also going to have to pay in. Sometimes that can be an okay thing for people, because I know sometimes people look, if you overpay in taxes, it's kind of like you're giving the IRS a free loan. But also sometimes at the end of the year, if you don't have that money that you have to pay in, then you can be faced with penalties and it makes it even more costly. So you really have to decide what's best for you on how much taxes that you're taking out. But if you do work somewhere that does offer a 401k, how important it can be to contribute to that. And if you do have something like matching, it is essentially free money. If you put in $50 to your 401k and your employer matches it up to, say if they do up to 100%, then they put $50 in. You put $1,000 in, they put $1,000 in. A lot of times there's like a cap somewhere, like you can only put this much in and this is how much they'll match. That essentially, I hate using the terms like free money, but your money is being matched, and then you'll have that for your retirement account. So really looking, I just remember looking at me and my ex-husband's retirement account, and I was like, you are miles ahead of me, because I really had no idea what I was doing when I signed those papers when I was 18, 19 years old. And then we have credit cards. So my financial background is not quite the best. I have definitely struggled with the majority of my life with finances, being so stressed every time a new bill came. I've definitely had times in my life where bill collectors were coming after me. I've made late payments. I feel like when you start at a financial disadvantage, it is really, really hard to get out of that. Especially even something like living in the US, where we have a credit score, which is a whole other thing in itself. If you are starting at a financial disadvantage, in order to be able to build credit, it often makes it really impossible to do. And if you are able to secure a credit card and you have bad credit, or you're younger or something like that, oftentimes your interest rate is going to be so much higher, which again, if you're not paying off that credit card quickly, then your interest that you're paying on that is just compounding, and you're having to pay more and more and more, and then you're just getting yourself farther into a hole. When I went off to college, I very quickly got my own credit card, and I'm 35 years old, and around the time that I was going to college, I feel like I can recall a lot of business targeting at college students, which is horrible, but makes sense because we're adults now. We're out in the real world for the first time. We're making these decisions. We're deciding, can we stay up till 2 a.m. and still make it to class at 7 a.m.? We're deciding which boy we want to text next. We're deciding who is going to be in our friend group. So when a company is coming to you saying, here's a credit card, it sounds like a very adult thing to do. If you have a little bit of financial knowledge and you're like, oh, this is a good way for me to build my credit score, great. But in the reality, I feel like one of my biggest mistakes was getting a credit card so young, not really being aware of something like an interest rate and how it just compounds over time, not being aware of like the cycles of a credit card, and if you pay it off before this time, then you have, you know, no interest. Not realize I did not have this knowledge. It was not something that was taught to me in school. So again, a credit card company comes up to me and I was like, yes, sign me up, because I need help getting through college. You know, that was my mindset. I used my credit card to buy my school books. I used my credit card to buy food. I put myself through college, which is still something that I'm very proud of to this day, but it was very expensive. Again, 35 years old and I'm still paying student loans. I do not have those paid off yet because I had to take out so much in loans just to get me through my 4 years of college. I racked up money from, again, school books, food, putting gas in my car. I worked 3 jobs in college. I was often driving. Very quickly turned into a huge balance on my credit card that I obviously could not pay all at once, which then meant I was paying a crazy amount in interest rates. And sometimes when I was making like a gas purchase, it was like, I have money in my regular account, but if I use the credit card, then the money's not going out of my regular account. So I'll just put it on the credit card and then I'll use my account and I'll pay it off. But then again, I'm so young and just not aware of the slippery slope that you can go down with credit cards. I was not mature enough at the time, even though I thought that I was, and looking back, I made some good decisions and I made some really poor decisions. I definitely was not mature enough at that time to have a credit card, and it set me back, and it set me back for a long time. When I say I was paying those credit card balances for years and years and years. I look back and I think, would I have been able to make it through college without my credit cards? Could I have gotten more student loans, which do have, you know, relatively small interest rates? You don't get charged on your student loans when you are in school. You know, I feel like there's just different decisions I could have made, or if I did have that savvy to know you really do need to pay them off, otherwise this compounding interest is going to come back and bite you hard in the butt. I look back, and not only did I start at a financial disadvantage, then my college experience and my credit cards just sunk me deeper into that hole and deeper into that hole. For me, I feel like you have to be in the right place financially, and you have to be in the right place with your awareness and your financial responsibility to continue to pay that off, so you don't get, once you start to get like to a certain level of how much you owe and how much you owe in interest, it just feels like you're looking into a black hole and you're never gonna get out. Kind of along those same lines, my next couple are gonna be about credit cards, because I think they're a huge thing. I think a lot of us have credit cards, or have had credit cards, or are thinking about getting credit cards at some point. That I did that I didn't put on my list as a financial mistake, but I also wasn't aware of at the time. When I paid off a credit card, I instantly closed it. Again, that is something that affects your credit score, and it's something that I think is absolutely bananas. But when you just like instantly close down a credit card, part of your credit score looks at how long you have these accounts open. So even if you have a credit card that you haven't touched in 5 years, it still shows you've had this line of credit for 5+ years, and that equals a good thing. If you have a bunch of closed cards and that doesn't show that you have this line of credit for this amount of years, it can actually negatively impact your credit score. So also one thing I was doing, especially in my younger years, college, the years post-college, I'm paying off these credit cards. I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, I'm cutting these up and I'm closing them. Boom, we're done. That was actually negatively affecting my credit score. So that was also definitely a mistake. But something that I still kept doing into adulthood was putting purchases on my credit card that I could not afford. It's so funny making a video like this, because it's definitely a more personal video, and I want to be like, well, I used credit cards to help get me through college and I didn't know, and I had best interest there. I mean, when it came to like my mid-20s, I just was like, it's fine. I think I had this mindset of like, I'll figure it out later. And I think I also had a mindset of something's just going to magically change for me. I have this mindset of I have all of these things that I want to do, and at this time I'm still working a full-time job. I've also started my side hustle, which is now turned into my full-time career, and I'm thinking like I'm doing things right. And I'm someone, you know, I definitely believe in like karma and all of those things, but I genuinely believe that I'm a good person. I make mistakes all of the time for sure, but when you boil it down, I know that I'm a good person. I know I have good intentions. I know I have good interests. And I feel like I was always just kind of waiting for this like karmic situation to happen to me, because I've been through so much in my life and so much that was out of my hands, that I think once I got to like this mid-20s, I was working so hard. I felt like I was on the cusp of like my life changing. Truly, that's like how I felt. So I was putting things like vacations and trips and new beds and like furniture for the house that I was buying, all these things. Like I was putting so much on credit cards, and I was like, it's fine because I'm gonna figure it out later. And I like, for whatever reason, I thought like something great was about to come into my life. I still haven't really got that like karmic thing here, and we're now 35. So I think it's probably a good thing that I've given up on that mindset and I've just continued to put the work in and show up and be consistent and keep being a good person and all of that. I bought my first home when I was 24, 25. I was getting married. Me and my husband bought our first home together, which was really so exciting for me. It was such a huge deal. I'll never forget getting the keys, getting the house, just staring at this house. Like, I never thought I would be able to buy a house ever. We move into a house and there's definitely expenses and beds and furniture, and you know, I had a home office there. I was still working my traditional job, but a lot of it was work from home at the time, so I needed an office and a chair, and I was also writing books at this time. I really put a lot of purchases on a credit card, knowing full well that I couldn't pay them off. And there are times where we do have to use credit cards in emergencies. I have had to do that before. I know people who have had to do that. A credit card can be a good thing for when you do have an emergency and you do need something paid for, a medical emergency, something that's gone on with a family member, a pet, a house, your car. There's a lot of emergencies, so credit cards can be really good in that sense, to where you're not having to like go to the bank for a loan. Looking back, I'm fully aware that I was like, this is a really nice desk, I probably can't afford it, but I'll put it on my credit card and I will figure it out later. I'll figure it out later. Well, I never figured it out. So then the same thing that happened to me in college was then the interest started compounding and it just started going from there. One thing with credit cards is sometimes if you get a new credit card, you can have up to a year of 0 interest, which is fantastic. And that was something that I had done after I cut up all these cards in post-college. Now I'm stepping into this new era and I'm about to be a wife, and now I'm a homeowner and I'm getting closer to being able to leave my job and work full-time for myself, an entrepreneur, very exciting. So I went out and found more companies that had that 0% interest rate for a year. And then it was like, this is great. Without, you know, putting down the date of at this time you're going to start getting charged interest. And it wasn't just from here forward you get charged interest. You already had on your card that you hadn't paid off, you're now paying interest on. So that was something that I was trying to be good about. I was trying to find those cards with the 0% interest for a year, but then still not paying off the purchases that I made, because in that sense it's a good thing. You know, we buy this house and we're trying to buy furniture and a bedroom set, to be able to put it on a credit card and not have to pay interest for a year, and we can make those monthly payments and pay it down instead of paying all of it up front from our checking account. That's a great thing. But again, if you don't have the financial responsibility or the self-discipline to be able to pay those off within that time, you're still going to be hit with that compounding interest. And that is exactly what happened to me. So I was so proud of myself for paying off those college purchases, and then I did the exact same thing. I went about it a different way. You know, when I was first starting out in college, I didn't know that cards had 0% interest. So I know this now, and I'm like, yes, we're gonna have a whole year to be able to pay off these purchases. And not only did I not do that, I just kept putting more purchases on there and I kept having to pay more interest. Another thing that I would do quite a bit would be a balance transfer, and this is kind of the exact same thing. So when you do a balance transfer with a credit card, you're basically, say you're going from Chase to Bank of America. So at Bank of America, you can move the debt that you have, the balance that you have on your Chase credit card, you move it over to Bank of America, and a lot of times they have some sort of incentive, 6 months or a year, 0 interest on balance transfers. Again, that usually is only going to apply to the balance transfer. If you're putting other things on that card, you're gonna pay interest. But say your Chase card has 25% interest rate, to go to a 0, that's a good thing, right? So this was something that I did a lot too. I would hop around and I would hop around and I would just keep balance transferring. And not only does that not look good on your credit score, because every time that you apply for a new credit card, you have what's called a hard inquiry on your credit score, which affects it negatively. So if you're just constantly opening up new lines of credit and you're constantly just getting new credit cards, it's just dinging your credit score like that. Then I would transfer, say again, from Chase to Bank of America. I have a year no interest to pay that off, and then I don't pay it off, or I don't pay it all off in time. So then again, I'm still just going back to paying more interest because I didn't have that self-discipline to pay off my card. So balance transfers can be a really good thing. I definitely see the benefits to that. It all comes back to financial planning. Can you actually make sure that you pay that off within a year? Or are you just gonna end up in the same situation of having the self-discipline? Hey, I have to put $100 to this credit card. That means I can't just willy-nilly buy whatever groceries I want to this week. I have to plan a little bit better. I can't buy the pair of shoes that I want, whatever it may be. Actually sitting down and making a spreadsheet and planning your financial goals and planning all of that, I think, is so important. I could make a whole separate video on goal planning, especially around financials. It is something that I do every single month, and I find it to be so important to always keeping track of what it is you're spending your money on, and if you have something like credit cards, what it is that you can be paying off. So if you'd want a video on that, that's a whole other subject. One more thing that I want to talk about with credit cards is, like I said, credit cards can be positive. They have their benefits, and I definitely think so. I have come to a point where I am more financially responsible and I'm a bit more financially secure these days, which is fantastic, and I can finally trust myself with credit cards again. There was several years of my life where I truly just did not trust myself with credit cards, and once I learned that just closing all of these accounts negatively impacts your score, which then can affect if you're trying to buy a house or you're trying to buy a car, your credit score is always going to be very important. I still cut up those credit cards. I just did not close the accounts. So anytime I could have gone on to request a new card to be sent to me, but I physically cut up my cards so I could not use them. And there was, I'm trying to think how many years it was, maybe four years or so, where I did not put any purchases on a credit card because I could not trust myself to pay them off in time. Then there came a time where I was like, I think that I am financially responsible enough to have credit cards again. And what I feel like my mistake was not getting a credit card that offers some sort of other benefits. There are a lot of credit cards that have some sort of benefits tied to them. They have a cashback feature, they have something like some sort of points feature, travel, you get travel benefits, whatever it may be. There's a lot of different reward credit cards these days, but when I started getting back into having a credit card, I would just put my purchases on there and I would pay them off, again trying to help rebuild my credit score. My credit score was in really bad shape for most of my adult life. So I'm trying to repair my credit score. So I'm like, well, here, I'll put gas, I'll put groceries on here, and then I'll just pay it off and that'll be great. But then talking to other people, we would, start to have, I love that as you get older, you start to have more of these conversations. At least that's what happened with my group, right? We're all of a sudden talking about mortgages, we're talking about credit cards, we're talking about insurance, talking about 401ks, all these different things. And I had a friend who was like, I love my Amazon Prime card because it's like synced with Amazon, so you get like cash back at Amazon. Don't quote me because I don't have an Amazon card, but there's like benefits tied directly with Amazon. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Another person was like, I don't remember if it was like Chase, Bank of America, but you get cash back on every single one of your purchases, and it just goes into like a little account on your credit card, and then you can see, oh, you have $100, you can put that towards your statement balance or get a gift card or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I finally started looking into credit cards that have some sort of reward tied to them. And my mindset with this here is I now feel like I am financially responsible enough and I'm self-disciplined enough to have a credit card. I know that I can put purchases on there and then I can pay them off. But at the same time, I will have some sort of reward for using that credit card. I personally chose to do a Capital One card for the travel benefits because travel is something that I absolutely love. So they have a lot of rewards there, and especially something like if you book travel with the Capital One card, you get a crazy amount of points to your account, which then you can use towards flights, you can use towards like hotel rooms, that sort of thing. But there's other credit cards, like I said, that offer the cash back. I remember having a credit card once and it almost became like slightly addicting to look to see how much was in my cashback account. And because it was like, well, I'm gonna make these purchases anyways, I'm going to pay them off like the savvy financial consumer that I am, but then I'm going to get $5 put in this other account just for making that purchase, and then I can let that build up to $500, and then I can purchase something for $500 on my card and pay it off because I have that in my reward account. So there was a lot of years coming back from my really bad situations with credit cards that I was feeling so proud, and I was like, look at me go, and I'm making purchases on credit cards and I'm paying them off and I'm not paying interest, but I was having no other benefits. So I want to be very clear that I'm not saying that you should get a credit card just for those benefits, but if you are in a good place and you know that you are, I'm using the same terminology because I really want people to get this, but you're self-disciplined enough to make those payments, to not be caught in that cycle of compounding interest. Yes, having some sort of reward is great. You know, different stores offer this as well. I now have a Target credit card, which is one of my favorites, and you get, I think it's what, 5% off every single time you make a purchase with your red card. Sephora has those, Ulta has those if you use your Ulta Beauty card, cards that you can get double and triple points for gas and groceries, just different things like that. So that was something, when I realized that, I was kind of kicking myself because it was like, I'm doing great, but I could be getting a little extra something at the same time. So I've definitely changed that now. My credit cards are now tied with something to where I'm getting some sort of reward, kickback, bonus, something along those lines. So if you are, you know, financially responsible enough to get a credit card, could be something to look into. The last one that I want to talk about kind of goes back to a 401k or a retirement account, and this one still really hurts me. So I mentioned that I worked a traditional job and then I went into self-employment. So at the time that I did, what was recommended for me to do was to roll over my 401k into a Roth IRA. Before I had left my job, I had set up a meeting with a bank and explained what it was that I was doing, and they helped me roll over that money, because if you take money out of your 401k before a certain age, you get taxed and penalized. If you simply roll it over, you don't see that money at all, a check doesn't go to you, you don't have, it's not your responsibility to then go to another bank and say, put this into my Roth IRA. The paperwork takes it and then just switches it to a different account. So I did that with my Roth IRA, and I was super proud of myself. I thought, great, I did it, high five. You know, I now work self-employment, but I can just contribute to this Roth IRA and that'll be great. I'm setting myself up to have a successful future. Years, years passed without me realizing that, yes, I had invested money into this Roth IRA, but then it was just sitting there. That's just step one, is putting money into a Roth IRA. You then have to invest that money, and that is how your money grows. So my money was not growing, and I just really didn't realize it. I wasn't looking at the statements that closely. I wasn't paying that much attention to it because I didn't really pay that much attention to my 401k. It was like, whatever, it's doing its thing. It's growing on its own. It's fine. I didn't realize that with a Roth IRA, you have to invest the money that you already invested in. And I look back and I get a little bit flustered at the bank that I chose, because why they wouldn't have like let a girl know, I don't know. But again, I'm 25 years old at the time. I have no financial education on this, and I thought that I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing for my future. It was probably 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years that I had money just sitting in my account, not going anywhere. And I remember listening to a podcast, or no, I was reading a book, because again, I got to a point where I was like, no one else is going to change my financial situation. I can't keep like leaning on this crutch of, well, I wasn't taught it in school. No one taught me. Like, okay, so teach yourself. Like, you can't get ahead if you don't choose to get ahead. So I was like, let me try to figure out stuff. So I started buying the books and listening to the podcast, and it was a book that I was reading that was like, a big mistake that people make is not knowing how to use a Roth IRA. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. So, and I have now talked to people about this, and I watch their eyes go big. And I'm like, so we're not alone here. Because a lot of people that I know nowadays are also YouTubers, content creators. A lot of us do this full time. And a lot of us now have the responsibility of our own 401k, our own retirement accounts, our no Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, whatever it may be. There's a lot that we don't know. And it's not like that day when I was sitting down with my employer and I raised my hand. I said, what does 0 and 1 mean? I can't message YouTube to say like, what should I do with my Roth IRA? No one cares. I don't have someone looking out for me. If you are someone who has a Roth IRA or you are thinking about getting one, maybe you want one in addition to your traditional job, putting the money in there is not where it ends. You then have to learn about what you actually want to invest in. And that was a whole other road I had to go down. I had to hire a financial planner to help me with that because I had no idea what I was doing. And it was a lesson that I learned that still just hurts because I know that I lost out on so much money. And it goes back to why I wanted to do this video in the first place. Maybe something I said resonates with you. Again, maybe you have something that you can share in the comments. I think that that would be a great thing. You know, one thing, just talking about taxes is what I always try to say. If you are in a self-employed space, to make sure that you are paying attention to taxes, because if you are not taxed, you still have to pay your taxes. Sometimes I get really horrified because I see so many TikToks pop up where people being like, this is how much money I made on Amazon affiliate links and sponsorships and Instagram Reels bonus, and people are like, oh my gosh, tell me your ways, tell me your ways. And I'm like, but are you paying taxes? No one talks about taxes. And that is such a big thing. Someone who is self-employed and is also a small business owner, I have to pay in quarterly estimate taxes every quarter. Every quarter you pay in those estimate taxes because none of my paychecks are being taxed, but that doesn't mean I live a tax-free life. So be sure to be aware of that. One last thing I wanted to mention is a high yield savings account. This was something that I started again after reading a financial planning book, and I knew nothing. I've always had a savings account with my regular bank, and those interest rates are really, really low. I've also dabbled with like CDs and different things like that. Again, interest rates are usually pretty low. So I read about something called a high yield savings account. And as soon as I did, I signed up for one and started putting money into there because it grows so much faster. The same way that interest compounds from credit card debt, there is also compounding interest that's also beneficial in a good way and is going to grow your money, such as having money in a high yield savings account. Yet I'm not a financial planner, so I'm like really trying not to sound like I'm giving a ton of financial advice in this video. I'm just sharing like my life and my mistakes and my choices and all of that. It's been really cool to see money grow and grow quite quickly in a high yield savings account. I will say I started it maybe a year or so before the pandemic, and then interest rates can change, and they plummeted during 2020 and most of 2021, but the past few months they have been rising and rising and rising. It's like every single month I get an email saying like the interest rate changed and it's higher now, and I'm like, yes, because that just means every time that I get an interest payment to my account, it's just higher and higher. So if you don't have a high yield savings account and you are interested in savings, I think savings is so important. I think paying down debt is obviously super important, but I think saving money is also so important. And to be able to have your money grow without having to do anything, you know, I contribute to my high yield savings account usually twice a month is what I try to do, but then I just get more and more interest on top of that. And I wanted to mention who I have because they do have a referral link. The referral link is for everybody. I'm not working with them on this. You can Google it and you can get your own referral link, but I found it, so I really wanted to mention it. I use Marcus Goldman Sachs for my high yield savings account, and I've had really good experiences with them. I've had it for several years now. Way to save money and then earn interest on the money that you are saving. So they have a referral program, so I'll have the link in my description box, because what happens if you do sign up for their high yield savings account, you will get 1% higher interest for 3 months, I believe it is. I would also get that. So if you sign up under my link, then I get the 1% more for 3 months, but then you would also get it. And then if you want to refer a friend, again, this is not like a part of like an influencer thing. Anybody can get that. So you can take that referral link, and then hopefully you would like get another 1%, and then your friend would get the 1%. I don't know, it's just a really great way to earn even more than what you already have. So since this is more of a financial video, I just wanted to mention that as well. So again, that link will be in my description box. And again, I use the Marcus Goldman account for my high yield savings, which has really been such a big thing. And I check my account again twice a month is usually when I go in there to deposit money, and I just feel a sense of comfort and security, especially because now I am divorced and living on my own. I have a small business and I'm just by myself. I don't have anyone to fall back on financially if anything were to happen. So having a savings account that I know could cover my rent and my groceries and my dog and all of that for a while is definitely a very comforting feeling. But that is going to do it for today's video. Those were my top 5 financial mistakes I feel like I've made throughout my life. I hope you found this helpful or just interesting to watch or to listen to. If you have anything that you would like to leave in the comments, again, I think the comment section is so key, so important. Whenever I do these kind of different style videos, I just feel like the comment section is thriving with good advice and good takeaways and just people just sharing their stories in general. And it just, I think, is a really special thing. So thank you to everyone who comments, because I feel like our community over here is just getting better and better, and we really want to see each other succeed and grow and just be a positive space over here. So thank you so much to everyone who's been commenting on these more different style videos than I do from just YouTube. And like I said, if you're new here, I hope that you will subscribe. If you like this one, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I'll see you in my next video.